So at this point, I will ask for an amendment to the motion to approve all of the minutes for the annual meeting and the emergency meeting.
I make
So amended.
All right. So I need a second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Rick, do we have any public comments? We had requested them by email.
We have none.
Okay. All right. And do we have any written communications from the public?
None.
Okay. Then the city librarians report, which we received today.
I'm not going to take too much time on this because I've asked the division heads to come and each give a very brief report about what's been going on in their respective departments. You know, I sent you guys the statistics on circulation. I don't know how much that tells us. So the vast majority is renewals that were already out, although a few of us have been checking things out from time to time. And the rest of it is electronic stuff. There's some interesting things to look at about how it's affecting the projection for the rest of the year. While it's a pretty big drop, it's not what you'd think after one entire month of being completely closed. There are still some statistics. Let me pull it up right quick and share it with you. Share screen. Okay, everybody seeing this?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That's good.
So we've got the projections is what I'm interested in right now. Projected change on adult materials is down 23%, you know, at this pace. But if you look at electronic content use, that's projected up 17%, which isn't too surprising. Other physical items like our hotspots and stuff still projected to be an increase. But it gets really interesting down here. There's some other numbers. Visits to our web page, our page views, still searches in catalog projected to be way up. Given the fact that, you know, it's 8 weeks now that we've been completely closed, I don't think that those are terrible numbers. We were on a pretty good track, and this kind of threw us off. But we've had some, 300% increases on some of the electronic use of some of the electronic resources. So we'll see what the coming months bring, but I think there's going to be, when we start checking out physical items again, there's going to be quite a run on stuff. And that's based on what I'm hearing from our patrons and also from colleagues around the area. But unless there's any questions, I'm gonna let our division heads take the give you.
Amy has a question.
Has a question.
Well, just before we hear from the division heads, I'd be interested in your perspective of any of the virtual resources been particularly successful or well received by the community.
As far as the new ones, I don't think, and some of those numbers are still out, but I don't think any of those have been overwhelmingly used. But Canopy and Hoopla have, you know, really are the ones that have the increased usage is pretty impressive. To some degree, our first ebook platform, which is Library on the Go, so you know it is Libby. That one has grown, but not as impressively as Hoopla and Canopy. But everything, I believe, every single resource went up. They're good numbers. They're really good numbers. they're not eye-popping numbers, which is kind of what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I was a little surprised, I guess. All right, do we want to go into the division heads? So we've got Robert next, looks like.
And Robert's going to give 2 reports. He's going to give the admin and the circulation report.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Robert.
Hello. Hey, so basically, this has been a challenge for everyone. And one of the quotes that I've been kind of hanging my hat on, so to speak, is from JFK, who said, you know, the Chinese use 2 brush strokes to write the word crisis. The one stroke stands for danger, the other stands for opportunity. So this has basically been, as much as it's been uncomfortable and a challenge, it's also offered some opportunity for us to explore other ways to provide and expand on our services. Personally, I directly supervise the administrative staff and also the circulation staff. Half of the administrative staff has been coming in, working on site, and about 75% of the circulation staff with a volunteer from TS has been coming in working on site. So basically, when they're in, they've been working on the books that have been coming back. I think the last number on that was about 30%, pretty close to 25 to 30% of the materials that come back, and that should help a lot. And it also helps us to get a pretty good handle on the how to do this safely, because what we've been able to do is sort of set up our quarantine processes. So that's been very encouraging. We can put it over to the side, and this staff has been comfortable, I think, knowing that we're working on the processes, the safe processes. So that's been good. And the other thing, Rick, while I'm talking, can you allow me to share the screen here real quick?
Yeah. Let me see.
So I had some goals, and I'm just about done. I had some goals when we started about trying to make sure things were, we're accountable, and also to what am I going to do? How am I going to? This is totally new for everyone, especially in our department. So I wanted to introduce some new tech. I also wanted to find a way for people to get engaged. So when we first started, we had like the summaries and things like that. So one of the things we come across, and I'm going to share my screen real quick. Make sure I can bring it up first. Move a little slow. Okay, here we go. So one of the things that come across was Canvas. So this sort of set all of our summaries in little departments. And so staff logs in, and they can comment on any of these type of summaries. And the criteria that I asked them for when they're doing this, to see how this relates to our strategic plan and also how it relates to their job. So they basically can go in and they can actually look into this, like for this example, this one's financial literacy. And I'm not gonna go into them because my computer's moving slow. I don't want to waste time. And so that's one of the things we've been doing. A lot of what we've been doing is collaboration, which I'm pretty glad about, because that was one of my other goals, is how do you keep the teamwork going? So we've had some collaboration on working on the manuals that were severely outdated. We're working with the PRS department and getting e-cards for the students for DPS. So I think there are like 1,500 of them, and we just got that pretty much done. And so that's a good thing. We're also wanting to offer some, I've been talking with Matt and his department, the systems department. We're trying to get some more hotspots. So we're looking at about 25 more hotspots, unless we can get more money, and then we can look at offering more of those things out to especially to the kids. And so as administration, as I said, they've been coming in. We've also worked on some of the other processes that are in the building. This is a good time for us to work on our inventory. We supposedly have 230,000 items in the building, so we'll find out. So that's another thing. I think probably the last thing that I want to mention, there are a lot, it's allowed us to kind of catch up on things and to address some things that we haven't had the chance to address as fully as we would like. And that, for example, the teen, we've talked about teens, and I've been looking at some of the things they have out east. We have a Discord server set up. We've also been working on, Gamepedia and things like that. And this is some of the things I'm going to present to the PNG and also to the schools. And so hopefully we can get some sort of language where the kids will start maybe even coming in and starting to chat with one another. So I'm going to leave off right there. Pretty much all.
All right, thank you, Robert. All right, so we'll go with Becky is next.
Okay. So we have taken all of this time we've spent a lot of time on our digital side instead of worrying about the physical collections because it can't get in the building and you don't want to take those home. So since March 17th, we've actually added 701 Omeka entries, which I don't know if you guys know what Omeka database is. Omeka.decaturlibrary.org is our local history digital sites. It's where we're putting all of our board minutes. It's where we're putting all of our photos. It's where we're putting oral histories, you name it, it's going to be on there. A lot of our digital collections will be on there. Not everything, because it's actually going to take a long time to do this. Every single entry that goes on there has to be done by hand. We can't just do a file dump because there's a lot of information that has to go in with each and every item. So if you go and look at the board minutes, every board minute has information about those board minutes in the details for that record, and then you get the PDF itself. For the images, you get background on the image, and then you see the image itself. It's a really neat product. We've had it for a while, been using it for a while. There's 4,400 items on there right now. We've got thousands more to do. Leanne and I, who's my cohort, have really been spending a lot of our time focusing on getting our old board minutes out there, getting the history of the library out to the public so they can see it. She's also been working on the birth records. We have a birth records database that's searchable. Years ago, they pulled birth records from the newspaper. She finished 2004, 2005, and is currently working on 2006. That's 1,200 birth records added within, 2 months? That's pretty fantastic. And that's one person doing it. I'm not helping her with that one at all. And we don't have any volunteers working right now. All volunteers have been canceled until further notice. So the other thing I've been working on is Local History's been putting up 2 Facebook posts every week. Whether they're a video, there's 2 videos out there about our collections. I personally don't like to be on camera. I'm not making a lot of videos, but we're doing a lot of posts to promote the digital side of our collections. We've actually gone ahead and I've started adding a lot of our old tabletop displays to the website so that people can see them, and we will continue to do that after we get back. We kept most of the material that we had. A lot of it was already digital, but we just printed it out and put it on tabletops underneath the glass. So we've gone ahead and just added that all to the added it to the website. Tabitha has been working on that slowly but surely. Not all of them are out there, but they're getting there. And then I've been coming in about once a week to work on any requests that come through. We don't get many, but I have gotten it 1 or 2 each week. So that's probably 10 requests we've gotten since we closed. I do it to make sure that people still know that we're there and that we're still reaching out to them and we're still available. Of course, we always preference it with, okay, so we're going in on this day. I don't have access to this material right now, but I'm gonna go in on Thursday and I'll send you all the information I can. And people are super excited about that. They love it when you're open and honest with them about when they can get the material, how much access they have right now. And if it's a database issue, if we can get them to one of the databases they can access from home, we will. There are a few that are not available. Newspapers.com is not available, and we were not able to get access to Ancestry while we're stuck at home. ProQuest did not respond to my emails. So that's a conversation I'm going to have with ProQuest, but that's totally off topic. There you go. That's what we've been doing. We've been doing a lot of work, and I have been keeping in contact with the volunteers to make sure they know what's going on.
Thank you, Becky. And Rick put the link to the Omeka site in the chat, if you guys can see that. So you can take a look later. Alyssa, you are up next.
Thank you. Hello. We've been doing so many things in the last 2 months. I could never cover it all. I'm so proud of the team. They really, they take it and they run. So I'll just share some highlights. The very first thing that happened were the 7 o'clock story times. So Amanda, Susan, and John, they grabbed books and they immediately started filming that very first day we were closed to the public. And as obstacles arose almost immediately in the form of publishing companies and permissions, they acted swiftly to comply so that we're in compliance with all of that. And you need to know it's more than just telling a story, and it's more than just choosing a book that you are allowed to read. It's camera lighting, it's angles, it's editing, the actual posting, the uploading. It's a lot of creativity. It keeps us on our toes, and it's very vulnerable for us to put ourselves out there like that. The next thing that happened were the digital displays. I'm sure you well know that the staff are really amazing at marketing our books on site in the form of eye-catching displays. The obstacle here was showcasing our impressive digital collection. So Tabitha, Katie, Shelley, and Scott have been curating digital displays, connecting patrons to our e-resources ever since. And John has been curating lists for parents to aid in finding the e-resources for their children on Hoopla and Library on the Go. And then almost right on the coattails, we have tons of partner collaboration. Alex and Tabitha have been reaching out with former, current, and now new partners to offer our patrons a host of online videos that are geared towards helping the community stay healthy, physically, emotionally, mentally, and socially into the current lockdown state. All right, next one, online crafts. One of our regular programs that's offered monthly is Katie's Crafty Things. I tell you, there's always a waiting list. More than 40 people want to get in. And now it has celebrated its first time on YouTube, twice now. Excellent. The program regularly has a waiting list, but now we found a way for more people to appreciate book folding and paper craft. And she's going to try some new things in the future. Also from Katie, we've got book talks. Now, we have several book discussion groups, but they pretty much shied away from using Zoom. The exception is the graphic novel group. They've still been meeting monthly via Zoom. And I'm currently working on a way for us to have a few book discussions groups this summer for our summer reading program for all ages. But until then, Katie started testing the waters with book talks, where people gather together and talk about the books they love so you can share them with other people. And that was actually a lot of fun. I've never done that before. Robert mentioned e-cards for all school kids. This is where those webinar continuing education hours really showcase themselves. So PRS staff have put in over 350 hours of continuing education since March 23rd, and they offer inspire amazing ideas. And in the case of e-cards for kids, webinar that John attended was talking about encouraging Library on the Go to schools, which was going to require schools to purchase Library on the Go when we already have access to it. And we've also been supplying e-cards to Millikan students who were sent home, and sometimes that's out of district. So we paired the two and thought if we could get e-cards into the hands of all of the Decatur school kids, they could have access not just to e-books, but all of our e-databases for schoolwork, as well as their teachers. That's something I'm really particularly excited about. Our website. So the DPL's content is managed by 2 webmasters. Tabitha works on content for adults, and John works on content for children. And again, with the aid of several webinars geared towards that trade, they have sought to provide better access to all of our resources, particularly highlighting the ones that have become more important in recent weeks, and also the census. And then finally, SRP, Summer Reading Program 2020, is a go, thanks to a well-known and tested app in the library world called Beanstack. And also, and great thanks to Alex's mission and ambition to get it up and running in 2 weeks' time. With the help of her teammates to test and play and perfect that program, it's going to be perfect for our purposes. And as some of you well know, the Children's Summer Reading Program in particular has always stood out as unique. And we seek to continue that quest despite our current situation. And in the end, I think our Summer Reading Program is going to be even better in the future. And those are just highlights.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, you're up next.
So,
the systems department is basically me and Chris Nyheiser, a half-timer. And just before we shut down, we received 28 new patron computers, which are all out on the floor now, raring to go for when we do open. There's 47 other computers that we've updated to Windows 7 for various patron and staff usage. We've also have a whole new antivirus program for our computers. Well, we've also installed Office 2019 on all of those computers. Chris, who graduated this week from Millikan University, he's completed over 150 hours of continuing education credits, and he'll be in the library more from now on and allow us to get more stuff done and updated. There's not a computer in the library that is not completely updated.
That's great.
That's about it.
Great. All right, thank you, Matt. All right, and Carol, you are up next. Oh, she's on mute.
Last but not least, I guess.
Yeah.
So, you know, technical services receives, catalogs, and processes all the materials for the library. That's the physical part of it. But the behind the scenes part is the large database. You know, Decatur Public Library has over 250,000 items. And what we do is make sure that patrons have access and that our database is accurate. So like any large database, there's a lot of cleanup work. And as Robert said, this has been a huge opportunity to get to some of our projects that we've had to put on the back burner just because books keep coming in and we keep cataloging. You know, we also went through a very large switch from a different ILS system, and now we're on Polaris. So cleanup has been ongoing, but huge projects have not been completed, such as the magazines, the serials module. We also had a conversion 5 years ago in our cataloging standard. So that means records have to be updated and upgraded. So we've gone through probably, I would say, 10,000 records at this point, just cleaning up. Also, we've been able to coordinate some of our holdings with the national database that we work with. The OCLC catalog, I promised myself I would not use jargon, I'm sorry. But there's just a whole lot of cleanup that goes with a large database. We're used to putting out 1,500 items a month. So the time that we've been able to give now to cleaning up the database, like Robert said, has really been an opportunity. So, you know, we've made the best of an arguably bad situation, and our database looks better now.
Awesome. That is great news. All right, so I think that wraps up the division heads. Rick, any other comments?
I typed a couple of things in just to fill out Matt and Carol's comments that, you know, IT help calls actually increased in April from last April. And now Matt can't just, you know, get out from behind his desk and walk to somebody's office and fix it. But they're, you know, Matt and Chris are helping everyone and helping everybody very quickly. And, you know, the key for what Carol's talking about, all this database cleanup, is it increases access for patrons. It helps patrons find the stuff. It saves time for our patrons. It saves time for our staff, and it's a more accurate representation of what we have.
Awesome. That is, yeah, everything sounds great. Anything else, Amy?
I just wanted to thank Rick for this format. It was really great to hear from the department heads and really appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I really like this. All right, so now we will move on to the committee reports. So we've got we did not meet for the PPPR committee. So we will move on to Amy with the Finance and Properties Committee, which met last week.
Well, yes, we did last week, and so that was kind of our first attempt on Zoom. I think, you know, there weren't too many casualties. Just to go through this briefly to summarize, of course, capital needs and space planning was deferred for the moment. We looked at, as usual, we looked at the check registers for March and April, including the supplemental travel expense information. Rick sent a summary of Nashville and a report on that conference today. So we reviewed, asked questions, and approved it to bring to you. So I would I would offer a motion for approval of the check register.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, Sophia. All right, and then we need to do a roll call. All in favor. So we'll start with Sophia since she's on my top. Greg?
Yes.
Donna?
She's on mute.
Okay.
Aye.
You're saying yes.
Michael and then Ngazi and Louise.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. I finally found my unmute button.
There we go.
He saw it.
Okay, so the check registers are approved.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, there you go.
And then we also reviewed on an informational basis both the current results and Rick's projection of the full year. On a current results basis, we're essentially where we need to be. We had a discussion of property taxes. I do have a little bit of additional information today. So of course, our main source of revenue is property taxes, which come through the Macon County Collector. Tax bills went out May 15th. They're due back June 15th.
I got mine.
The legal requirement is then 30 days. Which would make it July 15th. You do need to be aware that because fewer people are likely to pay the entire tax bill, the first installment may be lower than normal. Of course, you know, that doesn't change the total, it just changes the timing. And the second thing is, obviously, they're going to be dealing with a big volume of mail to handle safely. So, you know, as always, I think we need to be, you know, aware of the challenges that people are facing. So that's that. And we talked about some of the specifics of the projection and Rick's showing his screen to show this is where he looks at, based on current results, what it is going forward. We had some questions just because some of these line items are very predictable and some of these line items are not so predictable. So we're going to kind of fine tune the methodology going forward.
And I did update a couple of things at your request, Amy. So you'll see that on this one, actually conferences, travel, and training is predicted to come out significantly under budget, simply because all the conferences have been canceled for this year, for the rest of the year. So there's not going to be any further, although we're doing a lot more in the way of webinars, and some of those come with a small cost. We're going to do a lot better on that.
And so the bottom line is still that it looks like we're going to be that revenue is going to exceed expenses. We're going to be slightly better than budget. But, you know, this is something that obviously we're going to watch going forward. So those were the main topics of discussion at the Finance Committee.
All right. Anybody have questions? All right. We'll move on. So there was no report for the foundation, correct, Rick?
Correct.
All right. And then there was no meeting, Donna, for the Friends.
That's correct.
All right. And then Rick will talk about the delivery suspension and other items with the IHLS.
Yeah, we're expecting news from Share soon about delivery, but right now delivery is still suspended. They have done some things in the database as a batch that we had already begun to do ourselves. In other words, or specifically, it's changing due dates. So if you've got things checked out, you've seen those due dates change on a regular basis. So they've done that for us. But so far, we haven't heard anything about when delivery will start again. It's got to be the last piece. I mean, everybody has to be open for one thing, or at least to some degree. So we're, not much has changed at this point.
All right. And then we'll move on to old business. There's no other old business. We got new business, the meat and potatoes of the meeting. So I hope you guys had a chance to review the phased reopening plans, and Rick can explain a little bit further on his thoughts.
Prior to that, if possible, should we discuss the turnover in trustees and recruitment thereof and all that under old business?
We can. I thought we'd talk about it in new business under committee liaison appointments.
That's fine.
Okay.
So going on to, which one is it? The phased reopening plan. So let me share that screen with you. So in an email to you guys, I think yesterday, I said, you'll notice that this is lacking in some detail. And I told you that that was by design, and I'd talk about that today. But we had a great sort of illustration as to why late yesterday afternoon. Paint the picture. A couple of days ago, I heard from a city manager writing about phase 3, and he indicated to me in an email that he would certainly feel comfortable with some form of curbside service once we officially go into phase 3 of the governor's plan. Well, then late yesterday afternoon, a press release from the governor's office showed some not insignificant potential changes to phase 3, things that would actually would have the potential to loosen things up a little bit, including the fact that basically it looks like retail will be open based on capacity, and as long as capacity guidelines are followed, and social distancing, masks, and all that stuff. While we're obviously not retail, it's a fairly close analogy. Libraries have never been specifically mentioned in any of the governor's orders, and that is because we've kind of asked for that as a state. Our libraries have kind of lobbied to, hey, if you're going to, we've kind of said to the governor's office, if you're going to make some library specific suggestions, we just kind of asked that we had some communication in advance. And so far, they haven't made they've not mentioned libraries at all. In a Q&A with the governor's office, well over a month ago now, the governor's office indicated that as a unit of government, public libraries could make their own decisions as to what services are essential and what are not within the confines of the social distancing guidelines. So we have the next step fleshed out pretty well to our, and by our, I mean the library leadership team, to our satisfaction, and that is curbside service. So we have a pretty detailed plan about that. We've got maybe one or two small things to iron out, and we're waiting on a couple of pieces that we've ordered, some equipment. But as long as you guys are comfortable with us having a bare bones approach to the overall plan that we can one step at a time flesh out, because we don't know. We get the the Restore Illinois plan gets revised on a somewhat regular basis. So our thinking is to just flesh it out one step at a time with either with board approval each time or a blanket pre-approval. I have mixed feelings about either approach, but I mean, I think in general, I would prefer that to know that I have that we have the board's support on any move that we make. So my preference would be that that you guys approve any major step, and I'm not talking about the details. I'm not talking about the processes and the procedures, but just overall, what is our next step? So for the retail piece of this, which isn't a perfect analogy, but it is an analogy. I think a pretty strong analogy. The direction is that the capacity limits are to be half of your capacity, or this alternative occupancy restriction for essential stores that was released by Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, which would basically okay us to have up to 500 people in the building at a time. And that is an extremely unusual event unless we're having a big event. We wouldn't, now gatherings are still going to be limited to 10. So that's the other portion of this that I'm having trouble sort of getting to jibe together. But what we would like to propose, the library administration and leadership team, is that we would like to propose that as soon as we enter into phase 3, unless there are of the Restore Illinois plan, unless there are some major changes to phase 3, that we'd be allowed to begin the curbside service. And again, it would also be dependent on you guys being comfortable with the approach to the overall plan that we have.
You know, Rick, I read somewhere on the internet that the City of Champaign Library has initiated in the last, I don't know, weekdays, curbside service.
Yeah, Mount Zion has.
Yeah, a lot of neighboring libraries have. Mount Zion has, Urbana has. Bloomington has, Peoria has, Normal has not, Springfield has not. It's, there's a variety of responses.
Is when you said you talked to Wrighton before, is there anything, in the conversation you had, is there anything with the mayor or him, with Wrighton or Pritzker's opening of things that would prevent you from offering curbside service as soon as you can open it up?
My understanding is no, that there's nothing to prevent that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, at least based on what I've read in the paper and, other sources. But, I mean, does anybody feel uncomfortable with curbside?
Nope.
No, I mean, I like the idea of getting, the library materials out to the public again.
What about staff?
Well, and that's where it gets trickier. And we've got, I've asked Chris Chris Sedilla, Library Counsel, to develop a best practices guide for us, mostly where HR questions are concerned. But the rule of thumb that I sort of took from a webinar that I attended last week, and Chris agreed with this, is that our default should be find ways for staff to work from home until otherwise announced. We need to default to work from home. We need to maximize the work from home. And continue to have the minimum number of staff. We believe that we have enough people that are comfortable with it, and in some cases more than comfortable with it, to provide this service. There's an advantage to being, not the first library to offer this service, because I get to talk to the directors of the other libraries and say what went wrong and what went right. And the consensus seems to be that the biggest thing you want to avoid is too much at the beginning. So we intend to start small, 3 days a week, 4-hour shifts, and branch out as we get the process down and as we see what response from the public is going to be. We don't want to get overwhelmed and create a bad customer experience. We want to get those kinks out before we go any further. But the idea all along will be to broaden. I would rather do that than start big and then say we can't handle it, we're going to have to scale back.
Yeah.
That seems to be the biggest issue that is being run into at other libraries.
So do you have a plan?
Yep.
To start curbside service? We
have a very specific plan about the procedure. All we don't have is a date, because that was not a decision I wanted to make without knowing the board. City Manager Wrighton's opinion seemed to be that his preference, and he said, he defers to the Board of Trustees on this matter, but just trying to coordinate public body responses, his preference would be that it does not begin until we officially enter phase 3 of Restore Illinois plan, which I've heard various dates. Is it May 29? Is it June 1? I'm not sure, but it's coming soon. I don't know that we'd be ready to go that day, but if that's our trigger point, if we know that we're okay to start after that, we have a plan. There's a few ducks that we have to get in a row, but we have.
So you're ready to roll it out on the 29th?
I think the 29th might be difficult. What I'm saying is, as long as we know we can go after the date that he says phase 3 is open, as long as we know that we can go after that, I would say, within a week of that, we probably would be.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Who would be the people that are interacting with the public? I mean, obviously the division heads have been very busy this whole time because they've just reported to us a lot of work that's getting done. I mean, how many people are we paying right now that are doing nothing?
Nobody.
None? Okay.
Nobody. But what we would do, so here's first week at least, but probably the first couple weeks, I want it to be management staff. I want it to be division heads and librarians. For a couple of reasons. One is just if we believe that this is safe and this is okay, we need to demonstrate that. We need to demonstrate that to our union staff and show that we really believe that. And 2, I want us to be able to have, so we're going to start on a Monday, Tuesday, meet and say, what do we need to tweak? What do we need to fix? And be kind of agile that way and have that sort of firsthand experience. Okay, we're doing it, we're seeing what needs to be fixed so we can fix it quickly. Now, I do want to transition to union staff as soon as possible after that, and specifically the lowest classification. So the lowest classification is page. Pages typically do hands-on work. They do shelving, they do processing of materials. There has been some of that to do, but they've been focusing, they've been coming in on a regular basis to do that kind of work, but there's not as much of it as there has been, okay? And the rest of it they've been doing has been primarily continuing education. So whereas the higher level staff, say a librarian, you could keep busy with continuing education forever. You eventually run out of things that are relevant to a page. So, we're already kind of getting into things that are more about work culture and that kind of thing, which is great. It's very positive. It's going to make them better employees. It's already made them better employees. But you run out of work from home things for the lower level staff more quickly than you do the higher level staff. Now, we have some backup plans. If we had to stay tight closed for a long time, we've got some data entry backup plans that we can use. But it's those are the folks that we want to get delivering that. Now, there's a bigger picture here too. I don't know what we're ready to talk about, because I believe this service is not going to go away.
Yeah.
I believe for the next year or so, it's going to be heavily used. And that has potential staffing and space use implications. But that's perhaps another question. But I think it's the obvious first step toward the reopening for us. It's the safest first step. It's being done already all over town by retail stores. Now, the difference is that items purchased in a retail establishment are not returned to the retail establishment as a matter of course. So we have processes for that in place too.
So I guess the question that I put to you guys is, how do we feel about the phased reopening plans? Do we want to be involved in all of the specific, not specific, but the major, like, do we want to do each phase, or do we want to provide kind of guidance as far as, what, like, we agree with what you've come up with so far? And so I would just like your opinions on that.
May I give an example just to maybe put some flesh on it?
Sure.
So one of the things that we've also talked about that could be in this next step would be computer use, no more than 2 individuals at a time, by appointment in the building for very specific purposes. For instance, applying for benefits, applying for jobs, filling out the census, that sort of thing. So that could be another part of this next step.
Yes.
I guess for me, I would feel like as long as we approve going forward, as long as we're not taking steps backward, I think that what you're doing is good. If we start taking steps backward, then I think we need to talk about it as a board. But other than that, as long as we're opening and then opening and opening and opening, I think that's really up to you.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Anybody else?
No, I think it's such a fluid situation. It's just kind of like we came into this. It was constantly changing. So I think it would be best to give, Rick latitude to, travel the waters as he sees them changing,
Yeah.
This is Greg. Back in March, the City Council of the City of Decatur adopted an emergency ordinance, tied to what Governor Pritzker did, that there's an emergency ordinance in effect in the City of Decatur that's not yet been rescinded. The optics of the library, any sort of opening, even if it's curbside service, before the City Council rescinds that ordinance, the optics wouldn't look good. You'd have one unit of government still declaring that there's an emergency in the city, and you have another unit of government, our board, the library board, saying we can open up. So my suggestion is, Rick coordinates things that, whatever Rick wants to do, I think is appropriate to do, but we shouldn't do it until, the city rescinds this emergency ordinance thing. It's what I'm told is it's very possible that this goes before the council on June 1st. That's the council meeting, the next council meeting, a week after Memorial Day. But that's not determined yet if that's going to go there. But my opinion is that, if Rick feels that opening up for curbside service is the right thing to do, as other cities have done, other libraries have done, that's appropriate for this library to do, so long as it's in sync with whatever the city council has done with this emergency ordinance thing.
Okay.
I somewhat agree with that, but city council is closing their buildings. Like, I think as long as we're not letting anybody in our building, like the city's not letting anybody in their building, but the city, I had an issue with my water bill. For some reason, they didn't credit it. And I called and somebody calls me back. And so it's still kind of open for that kind of thing. But so are you saying that we shouldn't even do curbside pickup until the city?
All I'm saying is that Rick should discuss with the mayor and the city manager to make sure that they don't view whatever the library may do, curbside service-wise, is at odds with their thinking is with regards to this emergency ordinance and so on. It's just, let's not do anything by ourselves. Just Rick coordinate it with them, with the mayor
Okay,
and
I thought you were saying that
council.
we shouldn't do anything until the council rescinds the order.
Well, I mean,
With the question. Are you telling me, and I don't mean to be ignorant here, that the governor has said that we can open things, but now we have to deal with our local government saying we can't open things?
I'm not smart enough to know all that. But there is, and frankly, I don't know what all the governor has said. I haven't seen everything yet. I don't know what's open or what's not open. I don't know if we're in the quadrant that's open or not. Okay. All I'm saying is that and Rick and I had talked about this before, is just Rick coordinate stuff with the mayor so that things are in sync.
Yeah, so Michael, did you have something else to add?
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just, people are ready.
Right. And I think that at this point, we probably could vote for the phase reopening plans that we trust Rick to continue and work with the city and notify us of different changes.
Right.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, then I will take a motion to approve the phase reopening plans as Rick.
I make a motion to approve it as Rick sees fit.
Second.
That's your second?
Is that okay, Rick?
Consideration to all the items in play, which I think Rick, of course, is
right. Because like what you said, Donna, it's very fluid. So.
Ngozi has a comment also. How are other Illinois libraries curbside then? And I assume she means legally. Well, I can tell you that it's.
Oh no, I mean in lieu of what Greg just said. How are the other libraries able to do curbside, regardless of what the?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Champaign or Bloomington did this emergency ordinance as Decatur did. The mayor and the city manager decided to do that for the reasons they decided to do that. To give them powers in the event that they needed powers. They never used any of the powers, but the thing still exists. So the mayor, previously had kind of talked about the optics of it. How can we open the city up if we're still saying that there's an emergency in hand? So we need to shut down the emergency first, rescind that, but that's not my call.
But then all the schools, like today, I went to Mount Zion and returned.
Zion is not Decatur.
No, I know, but Decatur, I'm sure, is doing it too. I went and returned all of her stuff, and they gave me back all of her stuff. So, to me, that's curbside. It was curbside.
Curbside service. Yep.
Drop off, curbside pickup.
So I guess my question really, asking the same thing again, is if Decatur made that call, was it based on what the governor said, or are there some statistics here in Decatur that made us different than the other Illinois cities? I'm just trying to understand the process.
My understanding is no, there was nothing unique about Decatur that was any different. It was for reasons I'm not aware of or I'm not knowledgeable of, Decatur decided to do this emergency ordinance thing, and that's, I'm told that needs to be rescinded before Decatur moves forward, but I'm an expert in this.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's all local. Everything, it boils down to local, because different situations. I was served this morning a Southern Illinois community, very small. The librarian is upset. She's saying the governor is going to want us to reopen, but things are getting worse here. Well, you don't have to. Just because he says you
Right.
doesn't mean you have to. We closed before he said you got to close.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, for the record, I have reached out to Mayor Moorwolf. I've reached out to city manager, and she basically directed me to city manager, right? And also to Brandy Binkley, the director of Macon County Health Department. So I was hoping to get, I want to know that, is it safe here? Is there something that question that Ngozi asked, is there something about here that is problematic? I know that at that time, and this is a couple of weeks ago now, Macon County Public Health said their understanding from the Illinois Department of Public Health is that it would be illegal for public libraries to open up. Okay. Our understanding from Library Council, from a couple of law firms that are municipal law firms in the Chicago area, and from the governor's office itself, is that that's not the case. Lobbying the governor's office not to have libraries in the language may have turned out to be a mistake, because there's huge discrepancy in interpretation of the executive orders. But I do think that ultimately, if your community is in a worse condition than other parts of the state, just because you had permission doesn't mean you should. But I don't know that that's the case here. I didn't get any indication that, I was told that hospital beds are not a problem. And I got no indication that there's something about the public health situation that would prevent us from providing this service.
Well, in any regard, I'm with Greg. I mean, you go along with the city and you keep us informed.
All right. Did I have a second? I'm sorry. I have a visitor, and she's going to be with me till the end.
What's the motion again?
We like visitors.
So the motion was that. He likes to talk. All right, Michael, do you want to say the motion, or?
Well, the motion is something like, that we are going to follow the instructions of the phase 3 opening per Rick, and he will keep us informed as we move forward and what stages they're going to roll out, or, you know what I mean? To some degree like that.
And it's coordinated, and Rick coordinates it with the mayor and the city manager, so that what the Decatur Public Library does is in sync with whatever the mayor's view is.
Right. But Rick will, I know this, we're way through the motion here, but Rick is going to keep us informed. He's not just going to
yes,
library and not
Rick will
coordinate with the mayor.
We'll move forward with, the motion would be to approve for Rick to move forward with an opening plan that takes into consideration all of the issues with the city and the advice of the governor.
Yes.
Second.
Yeah, okay.
Second.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So, Rick, since we have made that, I mean, I know we have action on the plan, but should we vote separately on curbside, since that might be an ongoing program that we want to? I mean, I know we didn't specifically, list the policies and things because we want to, we want to be involved in what we are doing, not how we're doing it. Does that make sense?
I think that motion that was just passed covers
my
satisfaction.
I agree.
Okay, awesome.
If we discuss curbside in the future, we can do that.
All right. So that sounds good. So the motion is passed. So we'll move on to the last, so we've got committee liaison appointments. So we have a bit of an issue because we have 3 people going off the board in June. So we've got Ngazi, Louise, and Donna. It's Donna's last term. So I have asked the mayor if she has any options. She said one of them has agreed to, but has not filled out the application. So she was going to follow up with her. And then I just said, you know, we need 3 more people. So that kind of affects our the committees because
Liaison committee.
I'm sorry. Because we only have 2 people on the PPPR committee, and we have, well, including myself, and then 4 including myself for the Finance and Properties Committee.
Hey, Samantha,
Yes.
you know, one of the things that that has occurred with a number of the boards, you know, not just unique to the library board, but there has been some difficulty for the city to find board members and to get things enacted in a short period of time.
Right.
And if we're going to have, come June 30th, 3 of our board members go away, I guess first question is, if that's not solved in the short term, and come July 1st, we only have 6 board members, does that prevent us in any way from having board meetings and deciding things? Question number 1. Question number 2, if it comes at issue with committees, should you rearrange the committees? So if there's only 6 board members present at that time, that the committees are rearranged so there's a quorum,
Right.
so that we can continue to move business forward, at least in the short.
No, that's a very good point. Rick, do you know?
I'm looking for the bylaws.
I was going to say the bylaws should probably give us a minute.
Well, what I know that this, you know, and if somebody, you know, this only goes so far, but the bylaws say until you're replaced, your term's not up.
You're welcome, guys.
we got into a weird situation last year because we did have a replacement, but he was unable to be seated. So, you know, we've just gone that long without that person being without that seat being filled.
Mm-hmm.
So then are we really down 4 people because we never filled a position?
Right.
Yes.
Wow.
Sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, there are 4 people.
So does that put us, that means we only, you know, come July 1st, we only have 5 board members. Does that put us where we don't have a quorum at a board meeting?
That's what I'm looking at right now. Not sure.
It depends on how the minimum amount of board members you have is.
Yeah, that's what we're.
Yeah.
Okay, it says, I'm going to copy and paste. I don't know how to copy from a PDF, but, well, let me just share the screen. That'll be the easiest thing to do. Okay, a majority of the board members currently seated on the board shall constitute a quorum. Action of business at any regular or annual meeting.
So that means that
So if we have 5, 3
as long as we
people
have 5,
are
we're okay.
Yeah, we just have to have 3 for a quorum.
Right.
Well, I would take it even further than that. To me, that says if you only have 3 people, 2 people would work.
Exactly.
So you're saying we're letting them go without replacements? That was a joke.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, that would only go if somebody is able to continue or willing. I mean, it's you know, if you can't, you can't, and that's just the way it is. I mean, the way it's written that way so that I think you can have somebody to continue to serve if they're willing and able to. But I don't know that any of you guys signed a contract, so.
I hope not.
We're getting paid so well.
I did want to just say, so are you guys the guys?
No, I'm kidding. That was a joke.
So are you okay with staying on the committees? Michael has agreed to serve as the PPPR committee chair. Are you guys okay? I mean, we'll have to have a friends person as well when they start having committees, but hopefully we'll have a board member by then and a foundation, I guess.
Well, I'll do whatever committee you put me on.
Okay, well, you're going to stay on the Finance and Properties Committee. So if that's okay, we'll just move on.
I heard that. Yes.
I think she wants to be a board member.
Yeah,
I think she does.
conflict of interest. Her mom's on it.
So at this point, we're gonna. Can I have a motion to table that since there's an action on the and we've pretty much there's not a whole lot we can do other than keep the same appointments.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So that brings us to Chapter 4 of Facilities.
Rick.
Well, we don't own the facility, so this is plus, you know, there's so many things now that you look at in a different light because of the last couple of months. But just quickly going through the checklist, we meet it all, you know, to the extent that we're able to, because you know, some of it is not is no longer the library's responsibility, but it is met by the city. It was our, pardon me, is our landlord. But you know, we've done a space assessment in the last 6 years. We may have to do another one because this is going to change, I think, a lot of things, and people. Things that people aren't quite expecting or understanding yet. I think that for a while, curbside service is going to be
Very popular.
one of the primary ways we deliver our services, which has space implications. You know, we didn't know that when we designed the parking lot. You know, we didn't know that when when it was decided where the Madden went and how big the circ area was, and you know, these are things that we're going to have to work through in the coming months. I do intend to have a conversation with our architect in next week and say, is this something that you guys have been thinking about? And I would assume that it has been, but I'd like to hear their thoughts on it, because they just delivered us a space plan that looked exactly like the space committee had indicated what we wanted. At least that's my opinion. I think Donna and Sophia, you're the two members. You guys get a chance to look at that plan sent about a month ago. It looked fantastic, but it may need to be changed now.
I opened it, but I don't really remember it right now. But it did look fantastic. That's what I remember thinking.
From what you don't remember?
Well, I don't remember specifically, you know, like what everything was and blah, blah, blah. Because we've gone through so many plans, and I've gone through so many emails in the past 2 months. It's insane.
Robert wanted to remind me that the HVAC work is about 98% done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
At least you guys have air conditioning.
Yeah, we don't.
Hey, Rick, in your comments, you know, you mentioned, and of course it's true, you know, at the time that the library parking lot was designed and the work was done, you know, we didn't envision COVID-19. We didn't envision necessarily curbside service. But as you guys have thought about, with you and your staff have thought about curbside service, is the parking lot access and such conducive to doing that, or does that present a problem and you got to come up with some other solution?
It's going to be dependent, Greg, on the public response to it.
Okay.
If you've ever used Kroger's click list, that's kind of our, so there will be spaces that will be dedicated to curbside pickup. We just don't know how many we're going to need, and that's
okay.
But you know, the more we need, the less long-term parking we need. So I think it should sort of even itself out.
Right.
So it's not necessary. You're not envisioning kind of a drive-through window. It's more somebody
Well,
parks
that'd
in a space and somebody runs out from the library and gives them something.
Well, that's the way. The second one is the way it's going to be. I mean, park in a designated spaces that will have a phone number to call, and we will have their things ready for them. We're just going to schedule it in advance, so we'll know who's going to be coming. And hey, it's Meyer. I'm in space 2, and at that point we check out the materials that have already been pulled, put them in a bag, take them out to their car, pop them in the trunk, preferably.
So that works in spring, winter, or spring, summer, and fall. Doesn't work in wintertime.
But you know,
but we're on summertime. I got a quick question. Are we done voting? Are we done voting on things?
Yes, there's nothing else that needs to be voted on.
Right. Okay, have a good day, rest of you. Thank you. I don't know how to get there.
I have a question because I'm wondering, is there a limit on that? And I'm thinking about me and teaching Kid Lit and ordering 45 books.
Yeah, right now,
that's
Dr.
going to be tough for somebody to bring out. So is there a limit?
Right now, we're limiting it to 10 per card, but we expect to expand that. I think at some point I have no limit. I mean, it'll be a challenge to bring out, but we have book carts, you know.
Can we do a limit, and then with people, you know, certain people, if they call and they have a special circumstance, like a teacher, get extra books, or if there's like some specific.
We're open to all that, but right now we're starting really small.
Yeah.
We're starting really small. We're gonna get the process down, and I think that it will lead to more hours of offering this service, and I think eventually we won't have any limit on the number of items checked out.
All right, I think that I think we're done with the facilities. I did want to thank everybody, including staff, board members. I mean, this has been such a crazy situation, and I just wanted to thank everyone. I know I had sent out a few emails, and I got back a lot of nice responses, especially from the staff and some of you as well. So, I mean, if you want to email me if you have any thoughts or questions, I'm always available to listen as well. But I wanted to thank you guys for everything that you've done so far. Thank you, Rick. I mean, you've done an amazing job, and the division heads. Oh, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I just have this, you know. So I did want to just say thank you, and that's the rest that I have. Does anybody else have anything?
I'm just happy with the fact that the staff has really rolled with all the changes that are going on and have made the best of everything. I mean, it sounds like we've gotten a lot done in this library, that it's just really nice to know that, you know, the money's being used in a good way and that we are employing people.
Yeah. All right. Well, then the meeting, I would say, is adjourned at 5:46 p.m.